And good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the announcement of the Golden State Innovation Act. I am Assemblywoman Petrie-Norris. I represent California's 74th Assembly District, and I'm really pleased to be joined today by my joint authors, Assembly members Kevin Mullen, Tom Daly, and Jackie Irwin, alongside our industry partners in the life sciences industry. This is a pivotal moment in California's COVID-19 response and recovery. We are more than a year into this devastating pandemic. Some more than 47,000 Californians have lost their lives to this deadly disease. Businesses across the state have been shuttered for months. 1.7 million Californians are unemployed, making our unemployment rate one of the highest in the nation. As we work to restore and rebuild our state's economy, we are facing truly profound challenges. And today we are introducing the Golden State Innovation Act to help California meet these challenges and to help set California on a robust path to recovery. Our goal is to incentivize investment, to create good jobs, and to fuel economic growth in California's all-important life sciences sector. The Golden State Innovation Act will reinstate the research and development tax credit and net operating loss deductions for California's life sciences companies. This is one of the most important policy levers that we can pull in order to encourage investment and growth in California's innovation economy. To be clear, California's life sciences industry is already a critical engine of our state's economy, employing more than 320,000 people directly and more than 1 million people indirectly. And these are not just jobs. These are good jobs. These are great jobs. These are jobs that pay on average more than $123,000 a year. These companies are a critical driver of California's economy. They're creating great jobs. They are also developing the life-saving treatments and therapies that are enabling us to defeat COVID-19 and put this pandemic behind us. As we look forward, there's also huge opportunity for growth in the life sciences sector. Growth has been strong and consistent over the last 10 years. That's expected to continue and to accelerate. We want that growth here in California. We want those innovators here. We want those companies here. And we want those wonderful jobs here. We want that growth here in the Golden State. And with that, I am pleased to welcome my colleagues and our partners and sponsors of this legislation. I'd first like to introduce Paul Ordahl from Massimo Corporation, which is headquartered in my district in the city of Irvine, California. Paul?
Thank you, Assembly Member. I appreciate being here today. I work for Massimo. We are a non-invasive patient monitoring company that really has specialized in doing vital sign readings for patients. And I just want to give a quick summary of our story of our company. It really is a California story. It was founded by an immigrant to the US about 30 years ago. He started it in his garage in Orange County, he and his friend from college. And now we have grown to almost 5,000 employees around the world, 800 here in Orange County. And our devices are helping monitor over 200 million patients around the world every year and keeping them healthy. And in response to the COVID pandemic, we rapidly turned around our technology and really shrank all of that technology at bedside and hospitals, and we're able to move it on to a person's finger and their wrist so that they can be cared for at home. And that's helping with our hospital surge capacity issues. And we continue to innovate, and that is really important for our state that we support and it really invest in the innovators and the science that's being done in our state, because it's helping people around the world stay healthy, and we need to keep that spirit alive. And I really appreciate the leadership of the legislature for taking this on and for your support of the life sciences sector. And I turn this over now to Assemblymember Mullen.
Thank you very much, Paul. And thank you to Assembly Members Daly and Irwin, and of course, Assemblywoman Petrie-Norris for your leadership on this issue. My name is Kevin Mullen. I'm the Speaker Pro Tem of the California State Assembly. Perhaps more importantly for our purposes today, Chairman of of the Select Committee on Biotechnology, and delighted to join you today as a proud joint author of AB 593. As a native of South San Francisco, I've witnessed the birth of California's biotech industry and its subsequent bloom right in my own backyard. It is imperative that we reinstate California's life sciences research and development tax credit and support this type of work in communities throughout the state. This industry employs thousands of Californians, in turn bolstering our local economies. But ultimately, it is the life sciences that will move California and the nation beyond this worldwide pandemic as they continue to research and develop therapies and treatments for those suffering from COVID-19. Whether studying the genetic sequencing of the virus, vaccine development, or the application of antiviral medications such as Gilead's remdesivir, it is clear that they are the scientific innovations that will lead us beyond a world dominated by COVID. Since these companies are tasked with some of today's most urgent scientific R&D, it is critical that California take tangible steps that directly support this innovation. For those reasons, I'm a proud joint author of AB 593, proud to join with my colleagues in this effort, and we'll be working with our speaker and our governor to try to make this happen. And with that, I will hand it over to Mark Holman, who is the chairman of Expand Aesthetics, and I hope I pronounced that right. Mark, let me toss it over to you.
You did. Thank you, Assemblymember Mullen. So I'm the chair of Expand Aesthetics, which is the global leader in the innovation space for new inhaled general anesthetics. And as we think about California, what we know is that one of our greatest assets as a state is the research funding that's leveraged by our major public research universities, pulling that funding into the state for leadership within academia. And then companies like Expand Aesthetics, which are then formed based on those technologies that spin out of the universities, go on to face a tremendous challenge, identifying the risk capital that's required to move that technology, which from our public research universities tends to be very disruptive and very early, taking that and moving it out to market. And when we're successful in identifying that capital, it means that we're able to create well-paying jobs, local spending, and additional investments that go right back into the California technology ecosystem. And so incentivizing risk capital here in California that remains domiciled here, so that companies like ours can better avoid looking outside for the innovation support we need, is critically important. And so advancing the Golden State Innovation Act is an example of the kinds of policies that move California in a more competitive direction. And we're pleased to join the legislature in support of that too. And so next we'll be hearing from Assemblymember Daley.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank all of my colleagues for joining together to restore the R&D tax credit. It's ironic that we have to even make the case because the industry is so vital to our state. It has been vital, and the number of jobs that have been created over the years, over 300,000 good paying jobs in the state of California, over 3,700 companies in the business. And if we're not careful to nurture and grow that industry in our state, there are other states in America who would love to have those jobs. Massachusetts is one example. Even though it's a long distance from California, they have a dynamic industry and growing, and they do offer state benefits to those companies. So we have lots of reasons to not take this industry for granted and to make sure that our state financial system supports this industry. The industry pays billions in taxes. We want that to continue. We want those jobs to grow. So thank you to my colleagues, and let's get on with passing this bill. Let me introduce Angela Ramirez Holmes, who is the president and founder of CalRare.
Good morning. CalRare is a nonprofit dedicated to improving the lives of rare disease patients in California. We are also the nonprofit sponsor of the California Legislative Rare Disease Caucus. Many of our members are here today. I began my rare journey when my then 8-year-old son, Andrew, was diagnosed with a rare brain condition called an AVM. In the United States, a condition is considered rare if it affects fewer than 200,000 people. Yet there are over 7,000 rare diseases that have been identified affecting nearly 1 in 10 Californians. Although each rare disease can affect a relatively small number of patients, together they are one of the largest underserved patient populations in the world, and they affect the most vulnerable among us, as half of those with rare diseases are children. We have challenges: limited awareness of rare diseases, symptoms often hidden behind common illnesses, physicians who have never encountered a patient with a particular disease, and those that are especially vulnerable to COVID-19. This is not simply a frustration for patients and families. Delays in diagnosis can lead to inappropriate management, disease progression, and time is not on our side. A third of children with rare disease will never see their 5th birthday. The incentives for drug development must change. Innovations in cell phones and computers are driven by the latest science and consumer needs. However, treatments are developed on what is reimbursed or what has patent life or exclusivity. 93% of rare diseases do not have one single FDA-approved therapy. This is a devastating statistic and unacceptable. Treatments are sitting on the shelves of research labs across the world that will never be developed because there is no way to recoup the investment. We need policies that ensure that the needs of patients and the best science are the main drivers of therapy development. We have proven time and time again that by changing policy, we can change lives, save lives rather. Therefore, we must embrace technology and innovation with both precision and speed. California companies are at the forefront of rare disease research and therapeutic innovation, and they must continue to be for the nearly 4 million rare disease patients in California. Rare disease patients cannot wait for cures. Thank you. And next we have Assembly Member and Rare Disease Caucus Member, Jackie Irwin.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here authoring this legislation with my colleagues. I represent Thousand Oaks, the home of Amgen, and hopefully one of the next biotech hubs in California. The life science industry is a shiny example of the type of business that we need to continue to encourage to grow here in California. Last year, at the height of the pandemic, our state budget looked grim and we begrudgingly limited the R&D tax credit. But with greater than expected revenues, we must continue to support and grow our economy, particularly in this sector. The incredible breakthroughs in record-breaking time from the life science industry during the pandemic have shown us how important it is to invest in research and development. Science will get us through this. Our goal in restoring the R&D tax credits is to make sure that California remains the center of innovation in the biotech industry. This tax credit will help create jobs and build back the economy while saving and improving lives in our state and beyond. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Mike Bernick, Special Counsel and Senior Fellow at the Milken Institute.
We can't hear you, Mike.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Well, let me start. Many of you know the Milken Institute. I've been part of it now for 20 years. We focus on employment and economic development data and issues, particularly here in California. And we've been doing work on tax credits and a range of tax credits. And in this project have been looking at the life sciences and the impact of tax credits in terms of jobs, in terms of wages, in terms of place-based development. We've been interviewing firms. I think I won't go over the data now in the sense that I think we'll be leaving a paper with some of the data summarized. But I would want to emphasize a couple points that Assemblymember Cotty Petrie mentioned, and also Assemblyman Tom Daly. The data is pretty, I think, dramatic in terms of what we see in the employment impacts and the economic development impacts over the past decade here in California of having this life science R&D tax credit. As they also mentioned, when we look at nationwide, California continues to be, in many ways, is even in heightened competition in terms of keeping our very vibrant life sciences. And also in terms of place-based, much of our life sciences are within our urban centers, but we're seeing more and more the impact of life sciences in other areas of our state that are in need of growth or in greater need of growth. And I'd add a final thing, just having been involved now for 40 years and followed the debates for 40 years here in Sacramento in our state. Today, there's so much emphasis, as there should be, on not only jobs, but good jobs, sustainable jobs. If there's a mantra in Sacramento, it's the importance of decent middle-class jobs. As Assemblymember Cody Petrie said, this is a hallmark of the life sciences. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Guerra, the CEO of the California Life Sciences Association.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning, everyone. As Mike said, my name is Mike Guerra, and I'm the president and CEO of California Life Sciences Association. We are so proud to be working with the authors and sponsors of the Golden State Innovation Act of 2021, which we believe will create more jobs, more opportunities, and continue to fuel innovation in California, like my colleagues here have said. This bill embodies what CLSA and our partner institute, CLSI, are all about: supporting, sustaining, and nurturing the California life sciences ecosystem. I want to thank you all for your time this morning in support of this very important bill. Turn it over to you, Assemblywoman.
Well, thank you, Mike, and thank you to all of you for joining us this morning. We'll now go ahead and open it up for questions. If you've got a question, just raise your Zoom hand, and Lizzie will recognize you.
So as the Assemblywoman said, if you are a member of the media and have a question, please raise your hand and we will call on you and unmute you.
Are there no questions in the queue, Lizzie?
Not at this time. So if reporters want to follow up after the press conference with any questions, we will be happy to answer them. And back over to you. Oh, actually, sorry, it looks like Adam Beam with AP. Did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't figure out how to raise my hand. I apologize. I had two questions. One is, I was curious if you knew about how much money this would cost. I know when the governor did this, or when the governor and the legislature did this last year, I think cumulatively it was about $3.8 billion. So I'm just curious what this slice of the life sciences industry would cost. And also curious if you have had any discussions with the governor about this. I know he did not include these exemptions in his budget proposal. Just curious if you've had any discussions with him and if he's receptive to this idea.
Well, thanks for that question, Adam. I can go ahead and jump in there. The estimated costs to restore the research and development tax credit and net operating loss deductions for the life sciences industry is $730 million per fiscal year. We have begun to have conversations with the governor and with his team, and our job as authors of this bill is to persuade both the governor and his team, as well as our colleagues in the legislature, that this is a critical and important priority in order to set California on a robust path to recovery.
Great. If I could just ask one follow-up, if that's okay. I know a lot of companies would like these temporary tax increases to be gone. Was there any consideration about broadening this to include others? Or I understand the reason for focusing on life sciences. Just curious if there's any discussions about broadening it.
I'll jump in there, and then if others want to add on. This does feel like a uniquely important moment for us to be supporting, investing, and looking to grow California's life sciences sector. That being said, I would certainly be interested in and excited about a broader conversation if our colleagues in the legislature were to propose broadening this piece of legislation. Any other members want to weigh in on that?
I think that I would just add, Assemblywoman and Adam, that I'd welcome a broadening conversation, but I think the focus here is the pandemic, COVID, plus economic recovery. So if you're looking at how do you structure policy to get at both of those major challenges, taking this tool off the table, it didn't make sense to do it last year. It really doesn't make sense to do it now that we're actually in a surplus situation. Yes, we do have some fiscal challenges in the out years, but if you're talking about ways to retain these companies that are doing this crucial work during this pandemic, but also these are the companies that are going to pull our train forward in economic recovery. So it just makes sense that we restore this at this time, but we could certainly have a broader conversation. I know our governor, who hails from the Bay Area, has seen himself with his own eyes the growth of this industry, what it means for local economies and for our state as a whole. So I'm confident that we'll be able to engage in a meaningful conversation with the governor and legislative leadership, including the pro tem who comes from a biotech hub herself and understands the value of this industry, especially at this time of a pandemic and a recession. We need to put this tool back in the toolbox for these critical California companies.
If there's any other reporters that have a question but can't figure out how to raise your hand, you can go ahead and just jump in now. Go in once, go in twice. I think adding on Assemblymember Mullen to what you were saying, we're talking about an industry that is delivering tremendous economic growth, that is creating good jobs, and that is literally also saving humanity right now. So, I think that if that's not a triple bottom line delivery, then I'm not really sure what is, which just highlights why this is such an important step for our state to take at this point in our pandemic response and recovery. So with that, I want to thank all of my colleagues for your partnership and your leadership on this critical and important issue. I want to also thank our life sciences partners for the work that you do for California and for Californians. And thank you all for joining us today. Look forward to keeping you posted as we move this important piece of legislation through the process.